If the association prevails, wins the lawsuit, the judge says, association, you are okay, you did nothing wrong, we don't know why we're here, but they had reasonable cause to bring this. The association is not entitled to its attorney's fees under any circumstance. It's very fair. The whole point of it, though, is to be that hammer over the association. You corrupt associations, you need to not do things wrong. And so they create this one-sided attorney's fee. So I'd say this with some jest, but I say it's very serious that we take these under consideration, and when we're acting as a board, that we act at a meeting, but deciding what type of meeting it's going to be. The other part I caution you about is let's avoid having discussions about association business outside of the meeting. That's a Brown Act issue. Brown Act boards can never meet and discuss and deliberate outside of a meeting with other directors. And most attorneys for Brown Act boards recommend that the directors individually, never get together outside of a meeting. They don't assemble as a group, unless there's maybe 2 people, but even that's questionable. So we may be going that direction in the future. That includes emails? That includes emails. If you have a majority.
That includes, I don't understand what it.
No, because we're not discussing, deliberating, or deciding anything that's within the authority of the association.
Association, business of the association, and a majority of the board is sitting here.
If the majority of the board is sitting here, we're not discussing, you guys are not deliberating, deciding, or discussing anything that's in the authority of the association. I won't let you go. So there's another big exception here, right? So you can't discuss, deliberate any item of business of the association. But what you can do is you can delegate. And this is something we've been telling all of our boards lately. Think about 1993, 94. How many people had emails then? I did. I don't know many other people that did. But 93, 94, most people were, a few people had it, but not everybody. So think back to 1993, 94. How did we deal with things? We met. We would look at our bylaws and look at the authority of our officers. The authority of your board president is actually a great deal of authority. The board president can make all sorts of decisions as to the operation of the association. And one thing I'm advising most boards is look at the authority of your officers. What can your president do? What can your vice president do? What can your treasurer and secretary do? Do they already have a lot of authority and a lot of decision-making power? Are we getting into too much of a consensus-type decision-making process? For example, if you have a landscaping issue and you're making repairs to the landscaping, the repairs are all budgeted for and anticipated, right? There's nothing new or out of the ordinary. The board approved the budget. This repair was part of those repairs. It's not a big deal. We're not going outside the scope. Could the board president just make that decision to go ahead and execute that contract on behalf of the association? It is possible. But you need to look at your documents and understand what the roles of the officers are, and then also have the board look at these issues and say, do we want to delegate this authority away? One of the big things that we're always talking to people about is something called a committee of the board, which if you have a 5-director board, right, and that's always key. If you have a 3-director board, these don't work so well. But if you have a 5-director board, you can have a committee of the board where you have 2 directors that basically can be given the authority of the board, the entire board, to make decisions and to carry out the actions of the association. The committee of the board is very helpful if you have a large siding project or a roofing project, right? You're getting ready for construction. You know that there's going to be change orders. Where's Bill Mann so I can make jokes about change orders? So there's always going to be change orders. And you're always going to have to deal with change orders. But one of the most problematic thing is you have to go back to the entire board, all 5 people, and say, hey, we've got a change order. We have to address this immediately because we've got to keep this project going longer. The costs are going to go through the roof. One of the best ways to do it is you're entering into a large-scale project like that. Form a committee of the board. 2 directors that don't have to do all the notices of the meetings and can still make all the decisions because it's been properly delegated to them. Part of that is also, though, we need to make sure that when we are creating a committee of the board, that it's very clear as to what power they're given and what power they're not given, right? Because we don't want to have to deal with or address a rogue committee type issue, right? The board told you to do X, and this committee's out doing Y. How do you stop them from doing that, or how do you rein them back in to remember what the actual charge of that committee was? So who else can you delegate to? The main thing here is you can delegate to anybody. And that, I do mean, you can delegate literally to anybody in the world. You can delegate to the managing agent. You can delegate to an officer of the association. You can delegate to this committee of the board. And this is my favorite part of the statute, any other persons or person. So you can delegate the board's authority to anybody in the world. You make the choice. Make it in good faith, make it in the best interest of the association, and make it with the advice of your experts that are telling you and advising you as to how to make the decision. I'm going to go off course real quick. Yes?
Not any personal, because there's an issue having to do with you can place people on a committee, but they can't have conflict of interest.
Correct. There's a whole, and that's where I'm saying that's the best interest when you're looking at who you're going to delegate to. I jest about any, because this is such a broad statement. I mean, so I can delegate to anybody. You guys walking down the street, I'll give them the authority of the board to take action. But the key to this is, though, is that when you're making this decision who to delegate it to, what are we going to be looking at? What's best for the association, right? That's our number one thing. Is it in the best interest of the association to delegate the board's authority to a guy walking down the street? Absolutely not, right? I kind of make a joke. It's 10:15 in the morning. I'm trying to keep you awake here with this with the statutory interpretation. But I'm going to hold questions till the end. We'll just keep going through. But if you could make notes and then we'll come back, I'll be happy to address it here. Acting in the best interest, though. Get back to that. Remember, good faith. Who are we going to delegate it to? Are we going to delegate it to 2 directors? If we're going to do that, we make sure that they're 2 directors that are available to meet and actually are committed to this project. We're not going to delegate to people that are going to say, I really don't have time for this. Why on earth are you guys giving me all this authority? You may also delegate to your manager. And a lot of associations are giving more powers to their managers so that they can make in-budget decisions about the financial issues without having to come back to the board every time to ask for a quote-unquote decision, right? Now, that being said, the board can also direct the person that you've delegated the power to that they have to report back to the association. And receiving a report as directors does not constitute a violation of the Open Meeting Act, in my opinion, right? So if you've delegated to a committee of the board, and those 2 directors are off making decisions, they could be emailing back reports to all the directors saying, here's what has been going on this day, here's what's been going on this week, these are the decisions that we've been making. And then they could also do that same report at an open meeting of the board. Here's where we're at with the project, this is what we've been doing, we're within budget, we're outside of budget, whatever it happens to be, so that way the board is fully informed as to what's going on, but you're not being asked to make a decision by email. Does that make sense to everybody? You're not being asked to make a decision, you're getting an informational document. Much like we do as attorneys when we're in litigation, we send out these informational, this is where we're at in the litigation. We've done this, we've done that, the other side has done this, done that, here's where we're at. We're not asking you to make a decision, we're just giving you information so that you're fully informed.
Does that invite dialogue back and forth between the board?
And that's always the big question, does that invite the dialogue back? Are we going to end up with a discussion going on, the accidental discussion by email? The thing I caution everybody about is just remember this, when you get that email back where they start to discuss, just shoot them an email saying, hey, you know what, let's talk about that at the next meeting. We're meeting in 2 weeks, let's talk about it there. Right? It's the issue of never hit reply all. Right? Worst thing in the world. Don't hit reply all, you just violated the Open Meeting Act. How dare you? But no, keep that in mind. Just don't hit reply all. If you have, sometimes, for example, you're doing a construction project. All these issues are coming up. Maybe one of the directors, though, comes back and says to the board president, I believe that the situation, right, it's not reply all, it's just going to the board president. I believe that an emergency has arisen such that, say you're 30% over budget, right? The board this is an emergency situation that needs to be addressed by the full board, and I'm asking the board president to call an emergency meeting based on this, right? We've got problems that need to be addressed.
Is it only the president who can decide that it's an emergency?
Calling a meeting is called by the board under most bylaws. The board president may call a board meeting or any 2 directors.
But declaring an emergency, who decides?
The board unanimously.
Okay.
So the entire board must be unanimous in their decision. That's why I emphasize that issue about you're not unanimous in your decision about the action, you're unanimous in your decision that we need to meet. And always keep that in mind. It's just an opportunity to talk, right? It's not that we're going to take this action, we're going to take that action. You may not agree with the action that's being presented, but being given the opportunity to sit down with your fellow directors and talk about it is what you're agreeing to. So it's not that you're agreeing to the action, you're agreeing to the meeting. And the other thing we've done, too, is they've cleaned up a little bit with telephone conferences, and we'll just hit on this real quick. You can still meet as an open meeting with people actually present in front of the table sitting there. That's the standard.